Hello, everyone. My name is Nikita Gupta, and today we are going to start with the CBSE Class 10th English. And we're going to take the very first lesson from the book First Flight, which is A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. So, before reading the lesson, we'll discuss some themes and the character sketch of the characters that we have in this lesson, and then we'll jump on to word explanation. As the title itself indicates, it's a letter to God. This talks about a man named Lencho, who had this immense faith in God, this unwavering, unshakable faith in God, so much so that when he actually encounters a problem, he does not seek help from any human, any friend, or any relative, or any known person. He only resorts to taking help from God. And how he does that? Is that he goes to the post office, actually writes a letter, addresses it to God, seeking for financial help. This incident highlights the very first theme of this lesson, which is faith. He has unwavering faith in God and he believes that God has the ability to provide for him. So, this shows the significance of having faith, especially during hard times, during adversities, during the problems. Secondly, that the fact that when he encounters a problem, he does not give up. He does not simply surrender or succumb to his problems, despite the fact that he's in a lot of despair. And he yet remains optimistic. He believes that, okay, God will help me. And finally, I'll be able to overcome this problem. This highlights the ability of human beings to endure challenges and deal with adversity. The second theme that we see in this story is resilience. The fact that he does not give up despite being so sad, despite being heartbroken, and despite being hopeless of how he will survive through the year when all his crops are lost, teaches us to be resilient in the face of hardship and having this strong determination to not give up. And the third theme that this story deals with is unpredictability of life. Now, in the beginning of the story, we will see how Lencho was optimistic and he was waiting for rainfall. And in anticipation that when there will be rainfall, his field, the yield this time, this year would be great, and he would make a lot of money, and everything would go well. And it does rain, and right after a few, just a few moments, what happens is that the rainfall actually turns into hailstorm. So this shows that life is quite unpredictable, and we must mentally be strong enough to deal with any kind of challenges that come along the way. And also, we have to learn to adapt to different kind of circumstances that we endure in our life at any point of time. So Lencho in this story, we'll see that he is quite a practical person, because when he encounters a problem, he does not wait for something to happen. He goes to the post office and immediately takes an action by writing a letter to God. Secondly, he is quite hardworking. Even when seeking help from God, his help is quite practical and logical. He simply asks for enough money to be able to sow his field again, which shows that he is somebody who never gives up on the hard work. He's quite diligent when it comes to his work. And he's humble. He's aware of his background, he's aware of his circumstances, and he has simply accepted them. Also, the very first thought that came across his mind when he lost all his crops to hailstorm was how will he manage to survive his family, his wife, his children. This shows him to be a generous person, somebody who was caring and very loyal and committed to his family. Also, talking about one thing that I mentioned, which is also the theme of this lesson, resilience. Lencho was quite resilient and optimistic when it came to uh, dealing with difficult situations in life. And there's another character that will come in this story, that is of a postmaster. Now, this postmaster is the one who actually becomes like a messenger of God for Lencho. Lencho does receive help towards the end of the story, but it's not the help sent actually by God, but more like by the postmaster, because who acts like a messenger of God. So the postmaster initially, when gets to know that somebody has addressed a letter to God, he laughs it off, he mocks it, But the very next moment, he's surprised and taken aback by the fact that how could someone have so much faith in God so as to write a letter and seek help. So he's shown to be generous and kind-hearted, and he is empathetic. He actually understands the problem that Lencho was dealing with and decides to help him. But he's also humorous, as I mentioned, that because initially he finds humor in Lencho's problem, but right after that, he never belittles Lencho, he never mocks him personally for having this unshakable faith in God. And he's somebody who's resourceful as well. You see that he was a postmaster. Of course, he did not make a lot of money, and 100 pesos, the amount which is discussed in the story, was a huge amount to be paid by one person. So, despite giving a part of his salary, he also asked a couple of friends and other employees of the post office to donate some part of their salary to help Lencho. So he's somebody who's also resourceful. Now let's start with a lesson one on one. The house, the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. From this height, one could see the river and the field of ripe corn dotted with the flowers that always promised a good harvest. So, look at the setting now. The setting is kind of symbolic for Lencho's situation as well, because Lencho ka jo ghar tha, his house, it in the entire valley, his house was the single one, the isolated one on top of a hill. And standing from there, one could actually see the entire field and the entire, almost the view of the entire town from that particular height. And right now, presently standing there, he could see the field of ripe corn that he had sown, and there were flowers on it, and it always promised a good harvest. So basically, till now, everything was fine. It was perfectly okay, and the flowers were blooming, which promised that, there will definitely be a good harvest this year. The only thing that the earth needed was a downpour, or at least a shower. So there was just one thing which was lacking, and that was rainfall, that was downpour. So Lencho was waiting for rainfall to happen so his fields could get some water. Throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, had done nothing else but see the sky towards the northeast. Now, why northeast? Basically, the water carrying clouds were supposed to enter from the direction of northeast. So, all through the morning, he had been very anxious and he had been in anticipation of rainfall. वो wait कर रहा था. He was looking forward to rainfall happening. So he had done nothing since morning and he only kept looking in the northeast direction, waiting for the clouds to come. Now we are really going to get some water woman. And this woman is nobody else but his wife. And he, in being hopeful, tells his wife that finally we are going to get some water. The woman who was preparing supper is evening meal, but here it's more like something late evening. She replied, yes, God willing. The older boys were working in the field while the smaller ones were playing near the house until the woman called out to them, come for dinner. So basically, this indicates not exactly how many, but Lencho had more than two children, and the boys who were his sons who were older, they were working in the field, and the younger boys they were playing near the house. So the mother calls everybody for dinner as it was ready. And now it was during this meal that, just as Lencho had predicted, big drops of rain began to fall. So, as he was anticipating since morning, it happened. In the northeast, huge mountains of clouds could be seen approaching. The air was fresh and sweet. The man went for no other reason than to have the pleasure of feeling the rain on his body. So Lencho went outside and he just wanted to feel that rainfall, that shower, that first rain on his body. And as he returned, he exclaimed happily, these aren't raindrops falling from the sky. They are the new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are 5. So basically, here it is a metaphor which simply shows that he was comparing the falling of raindrops to the falling of coins from the sky. So he said that, the little raindrops are like are like the coins of 5 rupees, 5 cents basically, and the bigger drops are 10-cent pieces. With a satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers, draped in a curtain of rain. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. These truly did resemble new silver coins. The boys, exposing themselves to the rain, ran out to collect the frozen pearls. So basically, now Lencho was satisfied. He was content that finally it's raining, and now my fields will get water, and finally I'll get a good harvest this year. And draped in a curtain of rain is basically an example of imagery how the entire field was now covered with rainfall. But very suddenly something shifted. The weather, which looked like a normal rainy one, suddenly turned dangerous. Suddenly turned extreme, and along with rainfall now started falling very large hailstones. And the irony here is that these actually looked like silver coins. Prior to this, Lencho was using a metaphor to express how the rainfall, how it was not just raindrops, but new coins. But this time, the hailstones that were falling, they actually looked like silver coins. And the boys, his children, they went out in the rain and they ran to collect those frozen pearls. Frozen pearls again is a metaphor. Those hailstones looked like frozen pearls. So the see this highlights the innocence of children. Now Lencho had understood something that this weather is not good for my crops, but the children, being children, simply enjoyed the weather for its own. It's really getting bad now, exclaimed the man, Lencho. I hope it passes quickly. But it did not pass quickly. For an hour, complete 1 hour, the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. So it was like the entire valley was now covered in hailstones, and the rain did not stop, the hailstorm did not stop. The field was white, as if covered with salt. Again, this is an example of simile. The entire field looked completely white standing from that height because it was covered in hailstorm. So, as he had predicted, the opposite had happened. The entire field of ripe corn had been destroyed. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants, and Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. So you see the use of words here, such powerful and vivid words, that he was extremely sad to the core because not even a single leaf remained on that trees. It was such bad of a hailstorm. When the storm had passed, he came and stood in middle of the field and said to his son, "A plague of locusts would have left more than this." So, generally, we see that fields are attacked with locusts, and when they come in large numbers, like thousands of locusts come together, and they simply attack the crop. And when locusts attack a field, nothing beside remains. Uh, Partially, or you can say very rarely, a few crops remain behind. So Lencho makes an expression that if locusts would have attacked my field, at least something would have remained, but this hailstorm was so bad that not even a single leaf is left behind, not even a single flower, not even a single crop has remained. The hail has left nothing. This year we will have no corn. And the point of this was that, as a farmer, you invest a lot, not just financially, but also physically and emotionally. You invest a lot in your field, and when you're finally waiting for the results for your crop to be ripe enough so you can cut it and make money, and suddenly something like this happens, and now the fact that you have to stay a lot many months without any money, and before by the time the next cropping season comes, you again need another financial help to sow the seeds and make all the arrangements again. So it was really a difficult time. That night was a sorrowful one. Of course, everybody was sad, all our work for nothing. So what they're exclaiming is that we did so much of hard work to get what? Nothing. There's no one who can help us. Now, this is an important line. So at this time, Lencho assumed that there is nobody he could go and ask for help. We'll all go hungry this year. This was the anticipation. But in the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house, solitary means isolated, alone. As mentioned, that in the entire valley there was a single house which was of Lencho, and all those who lived were Lencho, his wife, and his children. There was a single hope. which was help from God. Don't be so upset. Even though this seems like a total loss, remember, no one dies of hunger. So, that's what he remembered when he was consoled, that one should not be upset, and the fact that nobody dies of hunger. And that's what Lencho remembered, that he's always been taught that no one dies of hunger. And it's true, nobody dies of hunger. People die of due to different difficult circumstances. They die due to poverty, they die due to lack of resources, but nobody actually dies because of hunger. It's the lack of facilities, it's the lack of financial help that people die of. And all through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope, which was the help of God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. So, assumingly by his parents, probably, he had always been taught one thing as a child, that God sees everything. It's not that he doesn't know. So, Lencho believed that whatever is happening with me right now, God is witnessing everything. So basically, God knows my troubles, God knows my problems. Lencho was an ox of a man. The most important line phrase that is used to describe Lencho, that he was an ox of a man, which basically means that he was quite hardworking when it came to his work, his livelihood. Working like an animal in the fields. Another simile, that his working has been compared to walking of an animal. But still, he knew how to write. The point is that even though he was good at physical labor, at manual labor, he was still literate. He knew how to read and write. So the next Sunday, the following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. So the very next Sunday, he decided he wrote a letter, addressed it to God, and he himself went to the town because there was the post office. He dropped the letter in the mail, and it was nothing less than a letter to God, which simply means it was just a letter to God. God, he wrote, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. So he simply starts a correspondence with God, a deal with God. And he mentions that, if you do not help us, we'll simply die of hunger this year. I need 100 pesos. Now, see, another thing we get to know about Lencho here is how honest he was. He only needed 100 pesos for two things. First, to sow his field again, to buy all the equipments and all the ingredients which were necessary for the next season. Also, by the time those crops will yield and make him money, he needed money to survive his family, for providing food in his family. So he simply very honestly asked God for sending him 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes. Because the hailstorm and rest of the part is omitted, it's not shown. So which basically means that he explained the entire situation in that letter and dropped it in the mail. And on the envelope, where you are supposed to write the address of the receiver, he simply writes to God. He put the letter inside, and still troubled, he went to town because obviously the problem has not yet been solved. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. Now, one of the employees, who was also a postman there at the post office, who was a postman, but he also helped in other errands, he went to his boss, laughing heartily, and showed him the letter to God. So he laughed, like पूरे दिल से ऐसे he started laughing wholeheartedly, because he found it funny that how could somebody be foolish enough to address a letter to God as if it's actually going to reach him. Never in his career as a postman had he known that address. The postmaster, a fat, amiable fellow. So, all through these years, as he had worked as a postman, he had never seen this address, that nobody had ever written a letter to God prior to this. So, he took it to the postmaster, and the postmaster was somebody who was plump and was quite an amiable fellow. Amiable means simply he was very friendly and somebody of jolly nature. He also broke out laughing, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, that he was humorous. So he was quite a funny person, and he used to enjoy things. But almost immediately, his second reaction was that he turned serious, and tapping the letter on his desk, he commented, "What fate! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter. Starting up a correspondence with God? So, he was simply taken aback and surprised by the fact that how come somebody had such a deep faith in God? And he wished that I wish I had this deep faith in God. Look at this person, he's directly started up a deal with God. So, in order not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster came up with an idea: answer the letter. So now basically the postmaster, being as kind as he was, he decided that, why not open this letter? And he had assumed that maybe somebody had told about some problem to God, or had probably wanting to share some feelings with God. So what I should do is that I should open this letter, read what the problem is, and I'll simply send back a reply. But when he opened it, it was very clear, it was evident that to answer it, he needed something more than goodwill. He had understood one thing while reading it, that सिर्फ goodwill से काम नहीं चलेगा, सिर्फ good intention से नहीं होगा. He just needed more than goodwill, ink and paper. But when he read the entire letter and he understood what was the demand, he still stuck to his resolution. He still stuck to his promise that yes, I will help this man. He asked for money from his employees. He himself gave a part of his salary, and several friends of his were obliged to give something for an act of charity. So, not only himself, not only donated his salary, some part of his salary, he also took money from as many employees as he could in the post office, and also from a few friends of him who were kind of made to pay something as an act of charity. So, it was like doing, helping somebody in times of need. It was, despite everything, it was impossible for him to gather together the 100 pesos. So he was able to send the farmer only a little more than half. So, of course, as I said, back in those times, 100 pesos was a big amount. And despite paying his own some of his salary and taking it from his friends and the employees, he together managed to collect only more than half of it. Nevertheless, he put the money in an envelope addressed to Lencho with it a letter that contained one single word, God. So it was like making Lencho believe that the letter had come from God. So the next Sunday, right after a week, Lencho came a bit earlier than usual and he asked if there was a letter for him. This time the postman himself handed over the letter because they wanted to see this person, that who this man is who has such unshakable faith in God. So the postman himself gave the letter to him, and the postmaster, he was experiencing the contentment of a man who has performed a good deed, looked on from his office. So now the postmaster was kind of feeling quite happy and content with himself because he believed that he had made a good deed. He had done something very kind, something very compassionate, and he was happy. What he had expected was that the moment Lencho would open the letter and he would see 70 pesos, he would be happy. And the postmaster wanted to see that. So he was sitting in his office and from there he was observing Lencho. But when Lencho saw the money, the opposite happened. He was not even slightly surprised because for him it was like, okay, it's obvious. If I have asked God for money, God will give me money. So he was expecting money. He was not surprised in the least. Such was his confidence. So, as we were discussing the very first theme of the story, immense faith in God. That's how much faith he had in God. He believed that God will definitely send me the money. But rather than being happy, he actually became angry when he counted the money. And what he thought was actually it was just 70 pesos. He had demanded God for 100, but the envelope contained only 70, which was what the post office postmaster and the other employees and his friends were able to gather. Now, Lencho has such deep faith in God, or you can say blind faith in God, that he believes God could not have made a mistake. If I had asked for 100 pesos, God would give me 100 pesos. God cannot give me less. And nor God could deny me what I have requested. So immediately he became angry. He went to the window. He asked for paper and ink. And there was this public writing table, जैसे बैंक में होती है usually, where you stand and write all the checks. Similarly, in the post office also you have this table where you can stand and write your letters or any postcard or anything. He started to write. with much wrinkling of his brow. So even on when he was writing, his brows were wrinkled, which basically means that he was annoyed. He was kind of bit upset and angry, caused by the effort he had to make to express his ideas. And what he was about to write showed annoyance and anger. So that's why the expression. When he finished, he went to the window to buy a stamp, which he licked and then affixed. Affixed is means he fixed it to the envelope with a blow of his fist. So this is your fist, your mutti, and he took this and he simply affixed this. This goes to show that he was extremely angry, and such harsh movements express his anger. Now, obviously, the postmaster was expecting that he may have written thank you or something positive in the letter. So as soon as Lencho left, the moment he dropped the letter in the mailbox, the postmaster went to open it. It said, "God, of the money that I asked for, only 70 pesos reached me. Like out of the money that I had asked, which is 100 pesos, only 70 pesos have reached me. Send me the rest, since I need it very much. But don't send it to me through the mail because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks." So you see the irony here, that he thought that God must have sent complete 100 pesos, but these employees at the office must have taken some amount of money. So basically, he's accusing the post office people to be thieves and to have stolen his money, and he calls them a bunch of crooks, like he calls them cheats. So he requests God that please send me the rest of the money, and you see how he orders that send me the rest of the money, as if God is somebody who he can easily demand from. And he says that I need the rest of the 30 pesos because it's very urgent for me, but make sure this time you don't send it through mail because I don't trust these people at the post office. So the ending of the story is quite ironical, because the very people who helped him, who put those 70 pesos in the envelope, deciding to help somebody in times of need, were being accused of stealing the rest of the money. So the situation is ironical, and also there is one assumption that Lencho is considered ungrateful. Many of you might think that Lencho should have appreciated the fact that he got 70 pesos, but it's not that he was not grateful. It's simply that he had such faith in God, such he was so optimistic that God so definitely cannot make a mistake, and God would have given me my 100 pesos. So it was just that he was being upset how come God did not send him complete money, and if he did, then these post office people must have taken it. I hope you liked the video. I hope you understood the lesson really well. And for any feedback, drop your comments in the comment section. See you in the next lesson. Bye bye.